My name is Tara. I'm 33 years old, living in Seattle with the man I once believed was the perfect husband. But one night, while pretending to sleep, I saw him kneel on the bedroom floor, pry open the wooden panels and pull out a metal box. Inside weren't keepsakes or ordinary documents, but fake passports, a thick stack of cash and countless photos of women with the same brown hair as mine. My heart pounded, my mind went blank. The man who had slept beside me for the past 6 years. Who was he really? And what had he done to those women? Have you ever trusted someone completely only to discover it was all a facade? Leave a comment and share your story with me. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so we can continue this journey together. Because right after this, I'll tell you what turned my marriage into a living nightmare. From the outside looking in, my life resembled a perfectly painted picture. A 33-year-old woman with a steady career, a reliable husband, and a warm home in Capitol Hill, Seattle. My work was anything but easy. As a marketing director at a major tech company, I was constantly under pressure, juggling endless presentations, dry numbers, and multi-million-dollar contracts. Yet I felt proud because I had built it all with my own hands, not through luck or connections. And every night I believed I had a place to lay down my burdens, someone who would listen, share, and comfort me. That someone was Ethan. Tall, with a gentle smile and bright eyes, he radiated warmth that made people naturally trust him. Our 6 years of marriage passed peacefully. He never raised his voice, never left me alone in difficult moments. Every morning he woke half an hour before me, brewed coffee, set it beside warm toast, and kissed my forehead before heading to work. Many times I thought, I'm truly lucky. My friends often said I was the model of a successful and happy woman. We had a small ritual that I once cherished as proof of his tenderness. Every night at exactly 9 o'clock he would bring me a cup of chamomile tea. Never early, never late, as if his body clock was programmed for that moment. The tea was always in my favorite sky blue ceramic mug with a spoonful of honey, enough sweetness to linger on the tongue. I would often still be at my desk, eyes glued to the laptop screen, when his warm voice would sound, "You've worked all day. Drink some tea, then get some sleep." At first I saw it as a sweet gesture. Gradually, it became a ritual, a rhythm I thought my daily life couldn't exist without. I even bragged to my friends. He notices every little detail. And I believed it, believed completely, as if his kindness was an unquestionable truth. But a few months ago I started noticing strange things. At first it was only a vague feeling. After drinking the tea I would fall asleep unusually fast. Normally I struggled to sleep, needing to read a few pages, check my emails, or scroll through the news before dozing off. But now, a few sips and my eyelids grew heavy, my body dragged down by something invisible. I couldn't remember the exact moment I drifted off. All I knew was that in the morning my head felt like lead and my memory came in fragments. At first I told myself it was work stress. The Morrison campaign, a major project my company was handling, was in its final stretch, forcing me into late nights that drained me physically and mentally. That explanation made sense, so I clung to it. And when I complained, he simply smiled softly. "You've been working too much. Your body is telling you to rest." Those gentle words reassured me briefly, but the doubt still lingered like a wound that wouldn't heal. The oddities didn't stop there. I began noticing small details, so small most people wouldn't care. My laptop would be neatly shut in the morning, even though I remembered leaving it open. My handbag sometimes shifted, the papers inside shuffled. Once, when I touched my computer, it was still warm, though I was certain I had turned it off the night before. The thought made my pulse quicken, but I brushed it aside. Maybe I forgot. Maybe he was just checking my email. I kept trying to find logical reasons, forcing myself to believe the man I had lived with for 6 years couldn't possibly be hiding anything. One morning I asked casually, "Did you touch my laptop last night?" He looked up from his newspaper, his tone calm. "No." "Why do you ask?" "Oh, I must have forgotten to close it." He smiled, handed me my coffee. "You've been overworking. You need more rest." That reply should have calmed me. Instead it sent a chill through me. Something in his eyes, in the way he answered too quickly, made me feel as if I had stepped backward into darkness. The nights went on the same. I drank the tea, fell into a heavy sleep, and woke groggy like someone had pressed a switch in my brain. I began to fear the very ritual I once saw as love. Fear the faint bitterness under the honey. Fear the way his eyes studied me too closely with each sip. Fear the moment I lost control, slipping into the void where memory vanished. One evening I joked, "I sleep like the dead. A thief could break in and I'd never know." He set the cup down, smiled lightly, "Good thing I'm here to protect you." Sweet words, but they sent goosebumps crawling over my skin. Alone in my office, under the dim yellow light on the wooden desk, I started recalling the small things I had ignored. The mornings he was up early, dressed sharply, though he usually slept later than me. The times he asked unusually much about the Morrison project, his eyes glinting with something I couldn't name. The nights he claimed late meetings, returning hours past midnight with a face too calm. All of it pieced together into a picture I didn't want to believe. A seemingly perfect marriage concealing crooked edges. And the more I tried to reassure myself, the more I felt I was inching toward a dangerous line, where one small detail could shatter 6 years of trust. I started paying attention to the tea's taste. Still chamomile, still that pale golden glow in the familiar blue mug. But lately, with every sip, I detected something different. At first, I thought it was a new honey or that fatigue had made my tongue sensitive. But the bitterness clung to my throat, refusing to wash away with water. A faint, lingering taste, as if something didn't belong there. One night, I lifted the cup, watched the liquid shimmer under the lamp, and shivered. He sat across from me, a gentle smile on his lips, eyes fixed on my every move. When I touched the cup to my lips, his gaze flickered, then lowered as if to hide something. I couldn't explain it, but instinct screamed. There was something in that tea. The next evening I decided to test it. I pretended to drink, holding the liquid in my mouth, then discreetly swallowing enough to convince him. The rest I spit into a tissue in the bathroom. My tongue still picked up that faint bitterness, confirming my suspicions weren't baseless. But suspicion wasn't enough. I needed proof. I needed to see with my own eyes what happened when I sank into that unnatural sleep. All afternoon I couldn't concentrate on work. I rummaged through my drawer, pulled out an old phone and checked its camera and memory. That night, when Ethan prepared the tea as usual, I secretly placed the phone on the vanity, angling the lens toward the bed. "You should drink this, chamomile helps you sleep better." He set the cup down beside my laptop, his eyes as gentle as always. I smiled, forcing myself to look calm. I took a few small sips, letting the liquid brush my tongue. The bitterness came back, sharper than ever. Minutes later, my body grew heavy. I lay down on the bed, breathing evenly, pretending to drift off. My heart raced, my palms drenched in sweat. I heard his footsteps approach, then stop at the bedside. The moment stretched like a century. He softly called my name, then lightly touched my shoulder. I stayed still, unresponsive. Then I felt his hand brush my hair aside, his finger lifting my eyelid to check. I used every ounce of strength to keep my pupils steady. For a few seconds he said nothing, then he smiled. That smile wasn't the familiar one from each morning. It was cold, calculating, making my whole body recoil. I heard the scrape of a chair, the snap of a bag zipper. My heartbeat pounded as he began rummaging through my things. The shutter sound of his phone clicked over and over. ID cards, credit cards, my company badge. Then he moved to my desk, opened my laptop with practiced ease, typing in the password without struggle. The night was thick around me as I lay motionless, listening to the sound of keys, the clicks of screenshots, and his voice as he made a call. I strained to catch every word. His tone changed, lower, sharper, carrying an accent I had never heard before. "The timeline is still good. 2 weeks more and it's done. She doesn't suspect anything. The drug works perfectly. Yes, she's the next one. The next one." Those 2 words rang in my head like a death knell. I nearly stopped breathing, my body trembling, but I forced myself to look asleep. I heard him chuckle softly, pages rustling, then everything went still. When he finally left the room, I opened my eyes, tears spilling onto the pillow. I had once thought I knew everything about the man who had slept beside me for 6 years. But that recording, that scene, tore everything apart. The next morning after he left for work, I dared to check my phone. The images appeared. Him checking my eye reflexes, that chilling smile across his face. Frame by frame, he rifled through my bag, photographed bank cards, opened my laptop. My hands shook as I played the audio. His voice rang out clearly, words quick and sharp. "The timeline is still good. She doesn't suspect anything. The next one." My fingers went numb, my heart plummeting into an abyss. I could no longer dismiss it as exhaustion or imagination. The man I had trusted completely was hiding a dark truth. After watching the entire horrifying video on my phone, I couldn't sit still. My heart thudded wildly, my hands trembling, those two words echoing in my mind. The next one. I needed someone to hear me, someone who would truly believe me. And the first name that came to mind was Kelly. Kelly had been my best friend since college, one of the few who truly knew me. She was strong, straightforward, not easily shaken. Over the years, even with our busy jobs, we still met at least once a week at a small cafe downtown. It was there I decided to open up. That day when I walked in, Kelly was already seated in our usual corner, her blonde hair tied high, her face immediately clouded with concern when she saw me. "What happened to you? You look like you've been through a nightmare," she said, pushing a cappuccino toward me. I sat down, hands clenched tight. Tears welled up and I had to fight to hold them back. "Kelly, I think Ethan is hiding something terrible. Maybe worse than I ever imagined." She stared at me, her brows knitting. "What do you mean? Don't circle around it. Tell me straight." I took a deep breath, then handed her my phone, trembling as I opened the video from the night before. On the screen, Ethan appeared, cold eyes, his hand testing my reflexes, that chilling smile that froze the room. Kelly covered her mouth when she saw him rifling through my bag, snapping pictures, opening my laptop like a stranger. When she heard the words on the recording, "The timeline is still good. The next one," she gasped. "Oh my God." Moments later, Kelly set the phone down hard on the table, her eyes grave. "This isn't some small matter. This isn't just betrayal, Tara. This is a crime." "I know. But I don't understand. Why? He already has everything. Why would he do this?" "Maybe because the man you call Ethan doesn't exist." Her words stunned me. "Doesn't exist? What do you mean?" Kelly leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Tara, have you ever checked his past? His degree, work history, family? Do you really know who he is?" I opened my mouth to answer, but nothing came. 6 years together, I had never questioned what he told me. Graduating in software engineering from Portland, working at a software company in Seattle, parents gone long ago. Everything sounded plausible and I accepted it as truth. Kelly pressed on. "I have a cousin in law enforcement. If you allow me, I'll ask him to run Ethan's identity. At least the basic data in the system." I hesitated, then nodded. The truth, no matter how painful, had to be uncovered. 2 days later, Kelly called me at the office. Her voice trembled, a rare thing for someone like her. "Tara, I've got news. We need to meet in person. This isn't something I can say over the phone." That afternoon, we met at a park by the Willilt River, a quiet place. Kelly brought a thin file. Sitting on the bench, she laid it on her lap, her eyes heavy. My cousin checked. Ethan's records. Start 7 years ago. Before that, nothing. No degree, no medical records, no driver's license, nothing. "That's impossible." He told me about his childhood in Portland, losing his parents, even showed me old photos. Kelly shook her head firmly. All his social media accounts were created at the same time, 7 years ago. Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. All of them. Nothing before. Don't you see? He built an entire false identity. It felt like the ground crumbled beneath me. 6 years I had lived with a man who didn't truly exist. Every memory, every promise, every comforting embrace. Possibly all part of a plan from the start. Tears spilled as I forced the words out. "Kelly, then who did I marry? Who's the man in my house?" She gripped my hand, warm but trembling. "I don't have all the answers, Tara. But one thing's clear. Ethan isn't Ethan. He built a fake life to enter yours. And from that recording, you're not his first victim." I listened to the wind rustle through the trees, my chest heavy as stone. The marriage I thought was my safe haven was nothing but a stage set with precision. And maybe I was only a temporary role in his dark script. That evening, as the last light stretched across the Willilt River, Kelly reached into her bag and pulled out more papers I hadn't seen before. She placed them on her lap, taking a deep breath before speaking in a weighted voice. "There's something else. I wasn't going to tell you yet, but you need to know now." I turned, gripping the bench, a chill running down my spine. Kelly slowly handed me a worn color printout of a news site, the headline bold across the top. "Seattle woman missing, Melissa Grant, 31." The photo made my heart stop. Melissa had long brown hair, bright wide eyes, a gentle smile. I stared so long I couldn't tell if it was her, or my reflection in the cafe window. We looked terrifyingly alike. Melissa went missing 2 years ago, Kelly continued slowly. Police found her home abandoned, belongings untouched, but her bank accounts drained. No signs of struggle, no leads on the perpetrator. I swallowed hard, forcing the words. But what does this have to do with me? Kelly flipped to another paper, a partial police report. The words "possible witness" stood out at the top. Beneath was a blurry security camera photo near Melissa's apartment. A tall man in a dark coat, head slightly bowed, but the face nearly made me drop the file. "Ethan," I whispered, my hands shaking violently. Kelly nodded, her eyes dark with worry. "My cousin got this from a former colleague at the department. They couldn't confirm the identity without solid evidence, but looking at it, Tara, do you still doubt?" My whole body felt like it had fallen into a void. I remembered the cold smile when he leaned down to check my eyes, the way he rifled through my things, and the recording with those words, "timeline," the next one. Everything overlapped, forming a horrific picture. "No way," I muttered, clinging to a fragile hope. Maybe it was someone who looked alike. Maybe it was coincidence. "Tara," Kelly cut in, her voice sharp but full of pity, "you have to face this possibility. Ethan, or whoever he really is, may have been the last person seen with Melissa." I buried my face in my hands, hot tears spilling out. Memories of happy days flashed by, now only veiled in lies. I thought of the dinners he cooked, the mornings he kissed my forehead. All of it suddenly felt grotesque, as if I had unknowingly lived with the kind of man the press called a ghost. Kelly placed her hand on my shoulder, gentle but firm. "If Melissa truly became a victim, then I'm afraid you might be next on the list." Her words cut like a knife straight to my chest. I thought of the stack of photos in the metal box. Faces of strange women, brown hair, similar ages. Maybe it wasn't coincidence. Maybe they had all once been the perfect wife in his eyes, until they were replaced. "Kelly, what should I do?" My voice broke. "First, stay calm. Don't let him suspect you know the truth. I'll keep asking my cousin to dig deeper. But Tara, from this moment on, don't drink anything he gives you. Do you hear me?" I nodded unconsciously, throat dry as sandpaper. Melissa's image haunted me. He once had a life, friends, a job, dreams. Just like me. And then one day, everything vanished without a trace. On the way home, Seattle glowed in the golden lights of small shops, but nothing felt familiar anymore. The streets I had walked 1,000 times now seemed like a terrifying maze. I wondered, had Melissa once walked beneath these same lights, believing she was loved before everything collapsed? When I arrived home, Ethan was sitting on the sofa, smiling. "You're late." I was worried. I looked at him, my heart hammering. Before me wasn't the gentle husband anymore, but the shadowy figure in that police file photo. I forced a weak smile. "I got stuck in traffic." He tilted his head, studying me, his eyes scanning my face. "Are you okay? You look a little pale." I swallowed hard, answering briefly, "I'm fine." He stood and walked into the kitchen. The kettle whistled, the faint scent of chamomile drifting through the air. I clenched my lips, my hand trembling on my lap, but I had to pretend nothing was wrong. Because now, if he suspected even a little, I might not have another chance to sit here and tell the rest of my story. I couldn't sleep after learning about Melissa Grant. The kettle's whistle, the scent of chamomile, his gentle smile when placing the cup down, all of it carried the ghost of something dreadful. I sat in the living room nearly until dawn, clutching the phone that held the video. I knew I couldn't keep this secret alone any longer. The next morning, when Ethan left early claiming a last-minute meeting, I immediately called Kelly. Her voice came through worried. "Tara, you can't let this drag on. You have to go to the police now." The thought of handing over the evidence made me feel both relieved and terrified. What if they didn't believe me? What if Ethan found out I had betrayed him? But when I thought of Melissa, of the faces in that stack of photos beneath the floor, I knew I had no other choice. Kelly was already prepared. She texted me an address and said I needed to meet someone. Special Agent Mark Lawson of the FBI, who had once worked Melissa's missing person case. I took a taxi to the federal office in downtown Seattle. The whole ride, my heart pounded as if it would tear through my chest. Mark Lawson appeared, tall, graying, eyes sharp but not unkind. He extended his hand as I entered the small conference room where only Kelly, he and I Saturday. Tara, I've heard a little from Kelly. But I need to hear it all from the beginning. I shakily handed him my phone. The blue glow from the screen reflected across his face, growing tenser by the second. When the audio hit those words, timeline, and the next one, Mark froze, gripping his pen tightly. It's him, he murmured. I looked up, my voice trembling. You know him? In FBI records he's not Ethan Mitchell. His real name is Victor Dane. An international criminal we've tracked for years. He targets women with solid careers, earns their trust step by step, then drains their assets, their identities, and finally vanishes. We believe he's tied to at least 5 deaths, including Melissa Grant. My entire body went cold. My lips moved without sound. Kelly squeezed my hand tightly, keeping me from collapsing. Mark opened a thick file laying out photos. I saw the faces of 3 other women, each from a different city, all disappeared without a trace. They shared the same look, confident, successful. He continued, the thing about him is he never leaves a direct trace. Everything is prepared in advance. Fake IDs, bank accounts, driver's licenses, social media, all created at least a year before he approaches the target. When the victim disappears, it looks like they left on their own. That's why we've never had enough to charge him. I whispered, and me? What am I in his plan? You're the next victim. But this time we have a chance to stop him, if you're willing to cooperate. I recoiled, heart racing. You mean, I have to be the bait? He nodded. We need live evidence, his confession, direct action. Hidden recordings alone won't hold in court. But if you pretend to still trust him, still drink the tea, still fall asleep, we can monitor and catch him in the act. I was horrified. The thought of continuing to act normal around the man I once loved, a man who might have killed Melissa, made me shiver. I shook my head. I don't know if I can. Every time I look at him, I feel haunted. I'm afraid if I slip up, he'll kill me on the spot. Mark placed his hand on the table, his voice low but firm. I understand your fear. But trust me, we won't let him touch you. My team will monitor around the clock. We'll have people in the neighborhood, listening devices in place. At the first signal, we'll act. Kelly turned to me, her eyes full of resolve. Tara, you have no way back. If you let this go, he'll disappear again. And there will be another Melissa. Her words cut through me. I remembered Melissa's face in the paper, her bright smile frozen in time. If I stayed silent, my name could be listed beside hers in a place no one wanted to see. I wiped my tears quickly and nodded. Fine. I'll do it. But I need one promise. I won't have to die for you to get your evidence. You won't die. I promise. We began laying out the plan. I would keep drinking the tea as usual, but in reality sip only a tiny amount so I wouldn't pass out. They would plant listening devices in the bedroom and living room. I had to make sure Ethan believed everything was the same as always. That night, the house on Capitol Hill was cloaked in silence. Every detail felt frighteningly familiar. The soft whistle of the kettle in the kitchen, the faint chamomile scent drifting through the air, Ethan's footsteps steady toward the living room. I was on the sofa, laptop open in front of me, but my eyes were locked on the sky-blue ceramic cup in his hand. He set it on the table, tilting his head with that familiar gentle gaze. I added extra honey tonight. It'll help you sleep better. I pressed my lips together, forcing a smile. Thank you. My fingers trembled as I lifted the cup. I brought it to my lips, letting the golden liquid brush my tongue. The faint bitterness returned. I pretended to take more sips, then sighed softly as if growing drowsy. Ethan sat opposite me, watching every move, his eyes lighting up as my eyelids began to droop. Tough day, wasn't it? His voice soothing. I faked a long yawn. Yeah, I think I'll head to bed early. He reaching for the empty cup. I'll take care of this. You go on up first. I climbed the stairs, making sure my steps wavered. Once the bedroom door closed, I collapsed on the bed, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it echo. Every sense was so heightened I could hear the ticking of the wall clock. About an hour later, his footsteps echoed in the hallway. I quickly lay down, pulled the blanket up, and forced steady breaths. The door creaked open, hall light spilling in. He lingered for a long moment, whispering, Tara, are you asleep? I stayed silent. He came closer, placed his hand on my shoulder, then lifted my eyelid to check. I summoned every bit of strength to keep my eyes still. He smiled, that same cold, calculating smile I had seen in the video. He walked to the corner of the room, knelt on the wooden floor, and pried up the panels. The wood groaned in the quiet night. From the hidden compartment he pulled out the metal box, opening it with practiced ease. The flashlight from his phone lit up the inside. A stack of fake passports, thick bundles of cash, and then a small glass vial filled with clear liquid alongside a brand new syringe. I heard him muttering under his breath as if reassuring himself, "This time it'll be perfect. No more mistakes." My hand shook violently as I reached for the bedside lamp switch. I flicked it 3 times in a row. The blinking light in the darkness. The emergency signal I had agreed on with Agent Mark Lawson. Ethan closed the box, slid it back into place, then moved toward the bed. I squeezed my eyes shut, every muscle tense. He sat on the edge, his cold hand brushing through my hair, his whisper close against my ear, "Thank you for trusting me. But this is the end." I heard the snap of the syringe cap coming off. His breath touched my cheek, my hair shifting from it. The moment the needle grazed my skin, the front door suddenly burst open. Shouts filled the house. "FBI! Don't move!" Footsteps thundered across the wooden floor, flashlights slicing through the hallway. Ethan jolted, his face shifting from calm to panic. Before he could react, the bedroom door slammed open. 4 agents stormed in, guns drawn. "Drop the weapon now. Hands on your head." For a split second Ethan froze, then spun around, syringe still in hand. I screamed, rolling off the bed to avoid him. One agent lunged, tackling him to the floor. The syringe flew, clattering under the table. He roared, his voice stripped of any tenderness. "You don't understand. I've been planning this for a year. She's just one link in the chain." 2 agents twisted his arms behind his back, snapping the cuffs onto his wrists. He thrashed, eyes blazing with hatred fixed on me. I crouched in the corner, shaking uncontrollably. Mark Lawson entered moments later, his face cold but his gaze reassuring as it landed on me. He signaled for an agent to collect the metal box, the vial, and all the documents inside. "His plan ends here," Mark said firmly. I clutched my chest, gasping, tears streaming down my face. In that moment I felt terror beyond words, and a relief I had never known. For 6 years I thought my life was calm, but it had been smothered in lies. And now that veil had been ripped apart. Ethan lay pinned on the floor, hands cuffed behind him. But instead of panic or begging, he laughed. A low, steady laugh that sent shivers crawling over my skin. "You think it's that easy to catch me?" He lifted his head, eyes gleaming with defiance. "I've been preparing for this a long time." Mark Lawson stepped forward, gun still trained on his temple. "Shut your mouth, Dane. This time your game is over." Ethan, or rather Victor Dane, looked straight ahead, his voice eerily calm. "You're fools. I never work alone. And all the digital evidence, you think it still exists? It's been wiped remotely. Right this second." An agent bent down, checking the phone confiscated from him, his face tightening. There was indeed a data transmission before the block. He connected to an outside server. Mark clenched his jaw but kept his voice steady. "Even if the digital trail is gone, we have the metal box, the fake passports, the cash, and his own confession. That's enough to end him." Victor chuckled again. "You don't understand. There are far more important things. I never put everything in one place. And," he tilted his head, scanning the room with sly eyes, "I still have cards you'll never expect." A chill ran through me. That smile wasn't of a man defeated. It was of someone certain the game wasn't over. Just then, an agent near the door, I remembered his name, Collins, the one who had been with the FBI team since they entered, suddenly lifted his gun, turning it on his teammates instead of Victor. "Everybody freeze." Collins shouted, the black Glock aimed directly at Mark. My mouth fell open, my mind spinning. Collins, the same man who had nodded to reassure me earlier, was now the traitor. "Collins!" another agent yelled. His teeth clenched, his voice heavy. "I'm sorry. But I can't let him go to prison. You don't understand." Victor tilted his head, smiling smugly. "I told you. I never walk alone." Mark raised a hand, keeping calm. "Collins, you're out of your mind. Do you know who he is? How many women have died because of him? You want to be an accomplice to murder? Collins faltered for a second, but Victor cut in, his tone sweet and poisonous. Don't listen to them. Collins, you owe me. I've kept your family safe for years. If you don't act today, everything will be gone. You know I can. The gun in Collins's hand trembled, sweat dripping down his forehead. Don't push me. Mark's voice dropped, firm and steady. Collins, listen. He's using you like he's used every woman before. Do you want your daughter to grow up knowing her father helped a killer escape justice? Victor burst out laughing, the sound echoing like drills in my skull. Don't believe him. They'll never protect you, Collins. For a moment, Collins's eyes wavered violently, torn in two directions. Then he tightened his grip, shouting, Everybody back off. I pressed against the wall, my heart squeezed tight. The room was strung like a bow ready to snap. Victor, though cuffed on the floor, looked radiant with power, as if he was the one controlling everything. See, he said coldly. I'm always one step ahead. I gripped the bed frame, every nerve screaming. If the FBI didn't act fast, one shot could end it all. And I knew, even in chains, Victor Dane still held the upper hand. Collins, gun aimed squarely at Mark, hands trembling but eyes desperate. Victor shackled yet smiling like victory was his. I pressed my back against the wall, heart pounding hard enough to tear free. If a single bullet went off, it would all end in blood. In the chaos, my eyes caught the metal box on the table by the window. It was the evidence the FBI had seized, but Mark had deliberately left it visible as bait. I swallowed hard, gripping the blanket. An idea struck like lightning. If I could distract Collins even for a few seconds, it might be enough for the FBI to regain control. Taking a deep breath, I lunged for the box, yanking it up and throwing it onto the wooden floor. The metallic crash rang out, papers and cash scattering through the air. Collins flinched, spinning instinctively. In that fleeting second, Mark roared, "Take him down." Two agents moved instantly. One knocked the gun from Collins's hand, the other slammed him to the ground. A deafening gunshot exploded, the bullet embedding in the wall inches from my head. I screamed, collapsing to the floor, ears ringing. But in that terrifying moment, I saw Collins's arms twisted behind his back, the gun skidding away. Victor howled, thrashing so violently it took two agents to pin him. He turned his burning eyes on me, spitting fury. "Stupid woman. You ruined everything. You think they can protect you?" Mark pressed his gun to Victor's temple, his voice like ice. "The game's over, Dane." There was no other way. In less than a minute, both Victor and Collins were subdued, handcuffed, and dragged out of the room. I sat on the floor, arms wrapped around my chest, gasping for air as tears streamed down my cheeks. Everything had happened so fast I could hardly believe I was still alive. When the room grew quiet again, Mark turned to me, speaking gently, "You saved the whole team tonight. Without your bold move, Collins would have pulled the trigger." I trembled, lips quivering. I didn't want anyone else to die because of him. The metal box was placed neatly on the table. An agent wearing gloves opened it, pulling out each item one by one. First was a thick stack of cash, over $50,000, bound with rubber bands. Then came the passports, each with a different name but all bearing Victor's face. The room fell silent as the agent pulled out thin folders, each clipped with photos of 4 women. Melissa Grant from Seattle, Rachel Moore from Denver, Sofia Alvarez from Phoenix, and Linda Cho from San Francisco. All followed the same pattern: mysterious disappearances, open cases, killers never found. I sobbed when the agent finally pulled out a thick stack of papers. On the cover, scrawled in black ink, stood the words, "Final Cleanup, Tara." Mark flipped through the pages. Inside were dense notes. My work routines, meeting schedules, bank accounts, even small details like my office door code, laptop password, and my preference for morning coffee. And at the very end, a line that made my blood run cold. "Thursday, finish. No witnesses." I clapped my hand over my mouth to stifle a sob. Never had death felt so close, scheduled as if it were just another task to complete. The trial took place 8 months later. I sat in the witness stand, my heart tightening as he walked in, prison orange replacing the crisp shirts I once knew. Gone was the sweet smile. His face was hardened, his eyes still arrogant, daring everyone in the courtroom. The prosecutor laid out each piece of evidence. The fake passports, the cash, the missing women's files, the recording of his late-night call, and most damning, the final cleanup Terra plan. The courtroom held its breath. Families of Melissa, Rachel, Sophia, and Linda were present. Those women were gone, but the truth of their deaths was finally revealed. Victor's lawyer fought back, claiming the evidence was only circumstantial, that there were no bodies, no direct witnesses. But the prosecutor answered coldly, when a man creates a plan down to the very minute to end his wife's life, when 4 other women vanish under the same pattern, when he is caught red-handed with a syringe of poison, this is no longer circumstantial. This is murder. The courtroom stood still as the judge struck the gavel, sentencing Victor Dane to life without parole. Collins, the traitor in the FBI ranks, was sentenced to 20 years for conspiracy and treason. As people filed out, I remained seated. The victims' families came to me one by one. Melissa's mother, her hair pure white, gripped my hand, her voice trembling. My daughter will never come back. But at least, thanks to you, we have answers. I embraced her, tears blending with hers. The father of another victim placed a hand on my shoulder, speaking only one word: thanks. In that moment, I understood that what I had endured wasn't just survival for myself. It was justice for souls buried in the dark for years. A year later, I no longer lived in the wooden house on Capitol Hill. That house had become a monument to nightmares, and I knew I couldn't stay there. I moved to San Diego, starting a completely different life, where warm sunlight and the ocean's blue seemed to soothe wounds no one could see. At first, I barely slept. The sound of a kettle boiling or even the faint scent of chamomile tea made my body seize up, my heart race. It took months of therapy, countless sessions with specialists, to learn how to separate present from past, memory from trauma. Slowly, I found peace again. I not only healed but also discovered a new path, joining the FBI Victim Services Division. They invited me to work as a consultant and speaker because my story had become known in the fight against identity crimes and romance fraud. At first, I hesitated. I only wanted to forget, to bury it all. But then I realized, if I stayed silent, other women might suffer the same terror I once did. So I said yes. On my first day stepping onto a stage in Washington, D.C., my hands shook. Before me were hundreds of faces: victims, experts, officers, and those who wanted to learn how to protect themselves. I told everything, from the sweet chamomile teas I once thought were signs of love, to the chilling moment I discovered I was the next one in a deadly chain. At times my voice faltered, trembling. But every time I looked up, I saw someone nodding, tears rolling down their cheeks, and I knew they understood. They had lived scars like mine, maybe worse. Afterward, a woman in her 50s hugged me tightly, whispering, "Your story made me believe I'm not alone." Moments like that convinced me I had chosen the right path. Life in San Diego gave me a freedom I'd never known. I rented a small ocean view apartment, waking each morning to the sound of waves. I learned to make my own coffee, a simple habit, yet a declaration of independence. No one else decided my sleep or my meals anymore. Sometimes seeing couples holding hands still made my heart ache. 6 years of love and betrayal left a hole, and I didn't know if I'd ever have the courage to open my heart again. But I wasn't in a hurry. I had learned that happiness didn't have to depend on someone else. Happiness could come from breathing, living, and choosing my own path. That June, I spoke at an international conference on cybercrime and identity fraud in Los Angeles. Reporters attended, and later the press called me the woman who turned truth into justice. I didn't care for the title, but I knew it carried an important message. Trust your instincts and don't ignore unusual signs in marriage or relationships. One evening, after finishing a talk in San Diego, I walked along the California shore. The sunset painted the sky red, the waves whispered against the sand, the ocean wind tangled my hair. I stopped, staring at the horizon. A strange mix of sadness and peace rose inside me. I knew the scars would never fully disappear. But I also knew that from those ashes I had stepped out again, stronger, prouder. I stood still by the sea, watching the sun bleed into the water, with an indescribable calm in my chest. I had walked through darkness, through nights of fear, only to realize that it was faith, in myself, in justice, that kept me alive. Every time I look back, I wonder, how many out there have ignored small but unusual signs in a relationship, believing love alone could cover them? How many have felt lost in a home that seemed perfect, but deep down knew something was wrong. If you have, I hope my story serves as a reminder. Listen to your instincts, don't fear asking questions, and never dismiss what makes your heart uneasy. A cup of tea, a glance, even a small routine. Sometimes they are alarms for an entire life. I would love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever faced a moment when you realized the truth behind a relationship? Share your story or perspective in the comments so together we can find strength and understanding. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss other stories about family, love, and life. Each story carries a message, and maybe one day the next one will be what you need to light your path.